Dr. Alina Maiev sat in her private quarters aboard the UNS Eclipse, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She had always dreamed of exploring the unknown, of uncovering the secrets of the universe, and now, here she was, one of the foremost astrobiologists in the galaxy. The UNS Eclipse, a massive research vessel, was humanity's pride, sent to explore uncharted sectors of space, cataloging new life forms, and studying alien ecosystems. For Alina, the mission was simple and peaceful: study, understand, and protect. She never imagined that she would become involved in something far darker, something that could change everything. Her calm and predictable world shattered one quiet evening when a strange signal began to bleed through the vessel's communication systems. The usual background hum of the ship was replaced by static, the air growing thick with tension. At first, it was just noise, cryptic blips, and garbled messages, but soon something distinct emerged. A series of words, desperate and fragmented, carried through the static humanity's last hope. Earth's ultimate force of destruction. Prepare. Alina's heart skipped a beat. She immediately called for the ship's communications officer, Lieutenant Calloway, to analyze the transmission. It had come from the farthest edge of known space, deep within a sector where no human had ventured before. It was unlike anything they had encountered. The signal itself was old, but unmistakably human in origin. Could this be a distress signal from a lost colony? Alina asked, leaning over Calloway's shoulder. It's possible, Calloway replied, his fingers moving over the console. But the message is ancient. The timestamp suggests it's been drifting for centuries, maybe even millennia. Alina's mind raced. A lost human colony? A distress signal from the depths of space? It sounded impossible. But the message had one final, chilling line: prepare. The weapon is alive. They were stunned. A weapon? What weapon? And why would it be tied to the survival of humanity? Alina felt a cold chill run down her spine. For the first time in her career, she wasn't sure what to make of this. The next few hours were filled with tension as the crew tried to decipher the rest of the transmission. The SOS, it seemed, was not just a simple call for help, it was a warning. A warning about something terrible, something that had once been hidden on Earth, a weapon with the power to alter the fate of humanity itself. It didn't make sense. Alina had been to Earth countless times. She had studied its history, its wars, its rise and fall. There was nothing in the records she had access to that could explain this weapon. If anything, the only weapon that could be tied to humanity's ultimate destruction had always been their own tendency to wage war. But this was different. The message referred to an ancient force, something that had been dormant for eons. Dr. Meave, Lieutenant Calloway, interrupted her thoughts. His voice filled with unease. There's more. We've analyzed the coordinates. The signal. It originates from a location on Earth. A cold wave of disbelief washed over Alina. Earth? But, no, that's impossible. The signal is millennia old. Our Earth should have nothing left from that time. But as Calloway showed her the data, it became undeniable. The coordinates pointed to a remote, heavily obscured location on Earth, a place that didn't even appear on modern maps. It was as though the very existence of this place had been erased from history. The crew spent days trying to understand the implications of what they had uncovered. What kind of weapon could be so destructive that it would be hidden away and forgotten? Could it be a nuclear weapon of some kind? Alina pushed those thoughts aside. This was something more than that. The more they analyzed the SOS, the more a disturbing picture began to emerge. This weapon wasn't just a machine, it was alive. The word alive wasn't used lightly. The signal didn't just contain data about a weapon. There were references to something sentient, something connected to the very essence of human potential. It seemed as though this weapon was not just a tool of war, but a force designed to shape the evolution of humanity itself. It was as though Earth's distant ancestors had created something far beyond their own understanding, something that could both elevate and destroy a civilization. Alina sat at her console, her hands trembling. "What have we uncovered?" she whispered. Her thoughts spiraled into confusion. The crew had been tasked with exploration and discovery. not with managing an ancient force capable of shaking the foundations of their society. For weeks, the UNS Eclipse's crew worked to uncover more. They examined historical records, ancient texts, and obscure data archives, trying to piece together the mystery. Each revelation only deepened their sense of dread. The weapon wasn't just a destructive tool. It was tied to a forgotten chapter of human history, one that had been intentionally erased. There was no doubt anymore. The SOS was a call to arms, but not in the way anyone had anticipated. Instead of urging the human race to build armies or prepare for war, it was a warning about a force that had the potential to reshape human existence entirely. And it wasn't a force anyone was prepared to deal with. The truth was undeniable. The weapon, whatever it was, had been waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. Dr. Maeve, once driven by the peaceful exploration of space, now found herself caught in a race against time, not to discover something new, but to stop something ancient, something that could alter the course of human evolution forever. A sea crew of the UNS Eclipse set a course for Earth. Alina couldn't shake the gnawing fear in the pit of her stomach. What if humanity wasn't ready for this? What if Earth's ultimate force of destruction wasn't just some ancient weapon, but humanity itself? The answers were waiting. And they weren't what anyone expected. The UNS Eclipse was hurtling toward Earth at full speed, the crew working tirelessly to decipher the mysterious transmission that had disrupted their peaceful mission. Dr. Alina Maeve, once an optimistic scientist focused on peaceful exploration, now found herself grappling with an unsettling question. Should humanity even awaken the ultimate force of destruction? The message, which had seemed like a call for help at first, was beginning to feel more like a deliberate provocation. Alina had spent countless hours analyzing the SOS, trying to piece together the puzzle of what it was truly asking for. She had discovered fragments of information that made her increasingly uneasy. The weapon they were racing to uncover wasn't merely a relic of the past. It was something much more powerful, more alive. It was tied to humanity's deepest potential and its greatest danger. As the eclipse neared Earth, Alina's mind swirled with doubts. Should they risk activating this force? The weapon might be able to defend Earth from extraterrestrial threats, but could humanity control such a power without destroying itself? Some members of the crew were eager to harness it. Lieutenant Garvey, a military officer who had been on the ship since the beginning of the mission, was particularly vocal about using the weapon to fortify Earth's position in the galactic hierarchy. "We can't afford to play the peaceful role any longer," he had argued during a tense meeting. "The universe won't wait for us to evolve. We need power, and we need it now." On the other side of the debate were the more cautious members of the crew, including Dr. Maeve herself. They saw the weapon as a Pandora's box, a tool that could spell disaster if misused. There was no guarantee that humanity would survive the consequences of such raw, untamed power. In her heart, Alina felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. What if awakening the weapon unleashed something humanity wasn't ready for? What if it triggered the very destruction it was designed to prevent? As if the situation weren't complex enough, Dr. Maviv began to uncover startling new revelations about the weapon. It wasn't just a technological marvel, it appeared to be a sentient force, something with its own consciousness. The more she dug into the data from the SOS, the more she found herself questioning the nature of this ancient entity. The weapon didn't just react to external threats. It seemed to be attuned to humanity's emotional and psychological state. It had been dormant for millennia, waiting for humanity to reach a certain point in its development. But what was that point? Was the weapon designed to help humanity evolve, or was it meant to keep them in check, ensuring they didn't descend into the kind of violence and destruction that had nearly wiped out their ancient ancestors? Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Lieutenant Garvey, who had been increasingly insistent on activating the weapon upon arrival. "We need to act now, Dr. Maeve. The longer we wait, the more we risk losing our chance to secure humanity's future." Alina turned toward him, her expression hardening. "You're not seeing the bigger picture. If this weapon is what we think it is alive, aware it may not be something we can control. It could decide what humanity's future looks like, and if we're not careful, it might decide we don't have one." Garvey's lips curled into a tight smile, but his eyes were cold. I'm not afraid of some ancient technology. It's just a tool, Alina. Tools can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to decide which. Alina didn't respond immediately. She could feel the weight of Garvey's words, but deep down, she knew he was wrong. There was something more here, something that couldn't be reduced to simple choices of good or bad. She had to know more, and the only way to find the truth was to get to Earth and see the weapon for herself. The tension between the crew members grew as they neared Earth. On one side, there were those who believed the weapon could protect them, a necessary evil to ensure the survival of the human race. On the other side, there were those who feared that unleashing the weapon would trigger humanity's downfall. As the planet loomed larger in the distance, the crew found themselves at a crossroads. Should they use the weapon to safeguard humanity's future, or leave it buried, unsure of what it truly was? When they finally landed, the situation became even more complicated. As the crew disembarked from the Eclipse and set foot on Earth's forgotten, remote landmass, they discovered something no one had expected. They were not alone. An alien presence was already there, guarding the very location where the weapon was said to lie. The species was unlike any the crew had encountered before, their skin shimmering with metallic hues, their eyes glowing with a strange, otherworldly light. These beings had long believed humanity to be insignificant, primitive even, but now they revealed themselves as the protectors of the weapon, an ancient race tasked with keeping the weapon dormant for as long as possible. "We've been waiting for you," one of the aliens said in a voice that sounded like a chorus of whispers. "You've come to awaken it, but you do not understand the consequences." Alina's heart raced. This wasn't just a defense of Earth, it was a defense of the weapon itself. These aliens had been watching humanity for centuries, ensuring that no one would unleash the power of the ancient force. They knew that if humanity gained control of the weapon, it would change everything, and not in a good way. The alien leader continued, his voice calm but heavy with warning. "The weapon is not merely a tool, it is a judgment. It was created to test humanity, to see whether you could evolve beyond your violent nature. If you awaken it, you will fail the test, and all of humanity will be judged." Dr. Maiev stood frozen, the weight of his words settling deep within her. What were they supposed to do now? If the weapon was really as dangerous as the aliens claimed, should they even risk trying to awaken it? Could humanity live up to the test, or would it be better to leave the weapon untouched? But then, just as the conflict seemed ready to reach its breaking point, a new betrayal surfaced within their own ranks. Lieutenant Garvey, the very officer who had been pushing so hard to activate the weapon, revealed that he had been secretly working with another faction of the alien species, one that wanted to use the weapon for their own purposes. He wasn't interested in saving humanity. He was interested in power. And now, he had made a deal with the aliens to ensure the weapon's activation, no matter the cost. Alina felt the ground beneath her shift. The crew was torn. Some still believed that humanity had the right to control the weapon, while others saw Garvey's betrayal as a sign that humanity wasn't ready for the responsibility. Loyalties were fracturing, and the mission was no longer just about the weapon, it was about survival itself. Now Alina had a choice to make. Could she trust Garvey, or was she forced to stop him before it was too late? The story had become a race against time, not only to uncover the weapon's true purpose, but to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. The stakes had never been higher, and the true nature of humanity's future was now on the line. The atmosphere aboard the UNS Eclipse had never been so thick with tension. After weeks of debate, betrayal, and fear, Dr. Alina Maiev and the remaining crew stood at the threshold of Earth's most ancient secret. They had finally reached the location of the weapon, a hidden underground complex deep beneath the planet's surface. As they made their way through the crumbling ruins, the air seemed to hum with an energy that felt both ancient and alive. The walls of the complex were covered in strange alien symbols, markings that no human had ever seen before. The deeper they ventured, the more Alina could feel a presence, an energy, watching them. It was as if something was waiting for them to make the next move. Her heart raced as she led the team toward the central chamber, where the weapon was said to lie dormant for millennia. When they finally entered the chamber, the sight before them was beyond anything Alina had imagined. The weapon wasn't a massive piece of technology or a simple tool of war. Instead, it was a pulsating mass of organic material suspended in the center of the room. It looked like a cross between an ancient machine and a living creature, its surface shifting and rippling as though it were breathing. The structure seemed to hum with a quiet, eerie energy that reverberated through the air. As Alina approached the weapon, her breath caught in her throat. It was beautiful in a way that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. It wasn't just a relic of the past. It was alive, and it was waiting. She could feel the weight of its power, pressing down on her. It was as if the very essence of humanity's potential for destruction and creation was bound within it. "Is this it?" Lieutenant Garvey's voice cut through the silence, filled with a mix of awe and fear. Before Alina could answer, something incredible happened. The weapon began to respond to their presence. Its surface shifted, revealing a pulsating core at its heart. The energy in the room intensified, and suddenly, Alina could hear a voice soft, low, and distant, echoing in her mind. It wasn't just the weapon speaking. It was something far older, something tied to the very fabric of existence. "Humanity," the voice whispered. "You have come. The time has come." Alina staggered back, her mind reeling. It wasn't a machine at all. The weapon was a sentient being, an ancient intelligence that had been waiting for the right moment to awaken. The weapon wasn't simply a tool for destruction. It was a tool for evolution, designed to guide humanity toward a higher state of existence, or, as it seemed, to prevent them from destroying everything they had created. "The weapon was designed to prevent the destructive tendencies of your species," the voice continued, reverberating in her mind. "It was a test, a measure of your worth. But you failed." The words hit Alina like a physical blow. Her knees buckled, and she had to catch herself on the cold stone wall. This wasn't just about power or technology. It was about something much deeper. The weapon was a measure of humanity's ability to rise above its own nature. And humanity had failed. Dr. Maeve's mind reeled with the implications. The weapon had been dormant for millennia, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to be worthy of it. It was never meant to be a tool of war. It was meant to elevate humanity, to guide them toward peace and wisdom, to prevent the rise of another species that would destroy everything. But the moment humanity activated the signal, it had triggered the weapon's awakening. Humanity's violent nature had been revealed. They weren't ready. They had failed the test. The more Alina studied the weapon, the more she realized it was not just an ancient artifact. It was connected to human consciousness itself. The weapon was tied to the very essence of humanity's potential, both the ability to create and destroy. It had been designed to reflect humanity's deepest desires, their darkest impulses, their capacity for both love and destruction. This was not a weapon that could simply be activated or controlled. It was a mirror reflecting everything that humanity was and everything it could become. Anyone who used it to confront their own desires, their own flaws, it would make them question their worthiness to wield such power. And that was the true power of the weapon, its ability to force its wielders to confront themselves, to look into the abyss of their own souls. Alina stood frozen in place, her hands trembling as she processed what she had learned. Her belief in humanity's potential had been shattered. She had always believed that human beings were capable of greatness, that they could evolve beyond their violent nature, that they could create peace in the universe. But now, she wasn't sure. Could humanity ever truly rise above its own dark desires? Was it even possible for them to wield such power responsibly? And then, as if on cue, the weapon began to respond to her thoughts. The energy in the room shifted, and the voice spoke again. "You are the one who brought them here," it said, its tone strangely calm. "You are the one who must decide. Will you unleash the power and risk humanity's destruction? Or will you leave it dormant, ensuring that your kind never awakens the darkness within?" The weight of the decision was unbearable. If Alina chose to activate the weapon, it would give humanity the power to protect itself, but at what cost? If they used it, would they be able to control it, or would it consume them, driving them further into self-destruction? On the other hand, if she chose to leave the weapon dormant, It would mean condemning humanity to a future where they would always be vulnerable, always at the mercy of other species. She felt trapped between two impossible choices. The weapon's power was not just physical, it was psychological. It would force those who tried to control it to confront their own darkest desires, to question whether they were truly worthy of such immense power. And Alina knew that if humanity failed the test again, the weapon might never allow them another chance. As she stood there, paralyzed by the enormity of her decision, something inside her shifted. Alina realized that the true ultimate force of destruction wasn't the weapon itself. It was humanity's own capacity for self-destruction. The weapon was merely a reflection of that potential. And in that moment, Alina understood humanity's greatest challenge was not to defeat external enemies, but to overcome the darkness within themselves. She knew that the decision she would make in the coming hours could determine the fate of the entire human race. Would they be able to rise above their instincts and evolve, or would they destroy themselves in the pursuit of power? The time had come to face the ultimate question: could humanity truly change? Or would they forever be bound by their own destructive nature? The moment Alina Maeve made her decision, the weight of the universe seemed to settle on her shoulders. The weapon alive and pulsating in front of her was a key to humanity's future. But the cost, she knew, would be unimaginable. She had always believed in the potential of humanity, but now, with the weapon's awakening, she faced a choice that no one could have prepared her for. "I have to do it," Alina whispered to herself, her voice trembling. The crew of the UNS Eclipse stood behind her, silently watching as she stepped toward the weapon, her hand hovering over the ancient control mechanism. Lieutenant Garvey stood to one side, his eyes filled with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. The aliens, who had once protected the weapon, had left. They had made their warning, and now it was up to humanity to decide what came next. As her fingers touched the interface, the energy in the room surged. The air seemed to crackle with electricity, and for a moment, Alina felt as if time had stopped. She took a deep breath, her mind racing, and then she activated the weapon. The entire chamber shook. A blinding light filled the room, and for a split second, Alina thought she had made a terrible mistake. But then, the light faded, leaving behind an eerie calm. The weapon, though still alive, no longer seemed threatening. Its energy had shifted, something had changed, but Alina didn't yet understand what it wasn't until they returned to the surface, to Earth, that the true consequences of her decision began to unfold. It first. The changes were subtle. People everywhere began to experience strange sensations. A few individuals claimed to hear voices, others felt an intense connection to the world around them. Then, the phenomena grew stronger. Telepathy. People could suddenly read one another's thoughts. Minds were linking in ways that were both terrifying and exhilarating. Within days, humanity's intellectual capacity grew exponentially. People began to process information at speeds never before seen. Technology advanced in a matter of hours instead of decades. Yet, along with this newfound intelligence came an overwhelming surge of power, one that humanity wasn't prepared to handle. The violent tendencies, the greed, and the hatred that had plagued Earth for centuries didn't vanish with the weapon's activation. Instead, they were amplified. Those who sought peace found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of their own emotions, struggling to maintain control over newfound abilities. Others, consumed by the power they now wielded, sought to conquer and manipulate, using their powers for personal gain or dominance. Dr. Maeve watched, helpless, as humanity's transformation played out before her eyes. In one of the major cities, a group of individuals with newly discovered telepathic abilities began to band together, forming an alliance. They spoke of unity, of using their powers to heal the planet and bring about a new age of peace. But others, those more driven by ambition, began to rise as well. They, too, harnessed their abilities, using their powers to manipulate, dominate, and even enslave others. Wars, but of a new kind, began to emerge, not with weapons of steel, but with minds that could break, bend, and reshape reality itself. Alina knew that her decision had led humanity down a path they weren't ready for. The power they had unlocked was too vast, too unpredictable. She had hoped that the weapon would force humanity to evolve, to break free from its self-destructive nature, but now she saw that evolution came with a price. As humanity's abilities grew, so did their capacity for corruption, fear, and destruction. For the first time since the activation, Alina began to question whether she had made the right choice. The weapon had been a tool designed to evolve humanity, but what if they weren't meant to evolve in this way? What if the weapon had only pushed them to embrace their darker instincts, giving them the power to destroy not just their enemies, but themselves? As Alina stood on the edge of a ruined city, watching the chaos unfold, a cold realization washed over her. The true nature of the weapon was not about destruction. It had never been. It was about pushing humanity to confront its own fear. Fear of their potential. Fear of what they could become. Fear of the very power that could lift them up or tear them apart. The weapon was a reflection of humanity itself, a mirror that showed them the truth they had long ignored. The real enemy had never been the aliens or the weapon. It was humanity's own unwillingness to embrace its true nature. They were afraid of their potential, afraid that they could not control the immense power within them. And now, with the weapon's activation, humanity had no choice but to face that fear. The transformation had begun, and the question now was, would humanity rise to the occasion, or would they crumble under the weight of their own fear and power? As Alina turned away from the city, she knew there was no going back. The weapon had done its job. It had forced humanity to change. But change didn't always mean progress. Sometimes, it meant falling into chaos, only to rise again from the ashes. In the final moments, as Alina watched the world around her shift, she realized that the true test was not whether humanity could control the weapon, it was whether they could control themselves. With great power came great responsibility, but also great fear. The power to create was also the power to destroy, and humanity had been given both. The story closed not with a victory, but with a question. Could humanity truly evolve, or would they once again destroy themselves with the very power they had unlocked? As Dr. Maeve walked into the unknown future, she couldn't help but wonder if the greatest lesson of all was not the discovery of the weapon, but the discovery of humanity's own fragile nature. Would they learn to wield their new abilities with wisdom, or would they fall prey to their own darkness? Would they build a new world, or tear it down once more? Only time would tell.